June 6, 1944. Omaha Beach, 6:30 in the morning. The first wave of American landing craft approaches the shore. Inside a concrete bunker overlooking the beach, a German soldier waits. His name is Heinrich Severloh. He is 20 years old. In front of him sits a machine gun mounted on a tripod, the MG-42. Below him, the ramps of the landing craft drop. American soldiers pour onto the sand. Severloh squeezes the trigger. What comes next is not the rhythmic tapping of a normal machine gun, not the steady thump, thump, thump that soldiers had trained to recognize. It is something else entirely. A continuous, ripping shriek, like canvas being torn at impossible speed, like a circular saw cutting through metal, like nothing any of those soldiers had ever heard before. In the 9 hours that follow, Severloh will fire approximately 13,500 rounds. He will change barrels multiple times, each one glowing red from the heat, each one warped beyond further use. He will not stop until his ammunition is exhausted. Decades later, historians will give him a name he never wanted, a name he will spend the rest of his life trying to escape. The Beast of Omaha. The weapon in his hands fired at 1,200 rounds per minute. 20 bullets every second, so fast the human ear could not distinguish individual shots. Only a continuous, terrifying roar. American GIS called it Hitler's Buzzsaw. German soldiers called it Die Knochensäger, the bone saw. Soviet troops named it the Linoleum Ripper. The MG-42 was so effective at killing, so effective at breaking morale, that the United States War Department did something unprecedented. They produced a training film, not about how to defeat it, not about its tactical weaknesses, about how to stop being afraid of it. The narrator assured terrified recruits, "Its bark is worse than its bite." The veterans of Omaha Beach knew better. The MG-34 was too good. The MG-42's predecessor was the MG-34, introduced in 1934. It was the world's first true general-purpose machine gun. It could be fired from a bipod by a single soldier. It could be mounted on a tripod for sustained defensive fire. It could be installed on vehicles, aircraft, and fortifications. One gun for every role. A revolutionary concept. And it worked beautifully. The MG-34 fired at 850 rounds per minute, faster than anything the Allies had. The British Bren gun managed 500 rounds per minute. The American Browning M1919 reached about 600. The Soviet DP-27 fired at 550. The MG-34 outclassed them all. But it had a critical flaw. It was too well made. Each MG-34 required approximately 150 man-hours to manufacture. Precision machining on specialized equipment, high-grade steel with tight tolerances, extensive hand-fitting by skilled workers. The cost was staggering. As Germany prepared for war on two fronts against major industrial powers, the math did not work. The Wehrmacht needed more machine guns, many more, much faster. The MG-34 could not be produced in sufficient quantities. If you are finding this deep dive into German engineering interesting, subscribing helps the channel grow. We release new videos on the weapons that defined World War II every week. A lantern factory built a killing machine. In 1937, the German army issued a new requirement. The specifications were demanding. They wanted the performance of the MG-34. They wanted to match or exceed its rate of fire. They wanted to keep the same ammunition. They wanted to dramatically reduce manufacturing time. The contract did not go to an established weapons manufacturer. It went to a company that had never built firearms. Metall- und Lackierwarenfabrik. Johannes Grossfuss, a factory in Dobeln, Saxony. They manufactured metal lanterns and sheet metal housewares, not weapons. Their lead engineer was Dr. Werner Gruner. His specialty was industrial metal stamping, not ballistics, not firearms design, metal stamping. This apparent weakness became the MG-42's greatest strength. Gruner approached the problem as an industrial engineer, not as a gunsmith. He asked different questions. He did not ask how to machine this part more precisely. Instead, he asked whether the part needed machining at all. Where the MG-34 used expensive machined components, Gruner designed stamped steel parts. Where the MG-34 required precision fitting, Gruner created generous tolerances. Parts that snapped together. Quick assembly, minimal skilled labour. The receiver of the MG-34 was a complex machined component. The receiver of the MG-42 was stamped from a single sheet of steel, pressed into shape and welded together. Manufacturing time fell from 150 man-hours to 75 man-hours, cut in half. But Gruner did not stop there. He redesigned the entire operating mechanism. The MG-34 used a rotating bolt. Gruner designed a roller-locked recoil system. The system was simpler than the MG-34, more robust, more tolerant of dirt and debris, and capable of cycling faster than any previous design. Standard production models fired at 1,200 rounds per minute. Some variants reached 1,500 rounds per minute. That was 3 times faster than Allied equivalents. The specifications were terrifying. Rate of fire was 1,200 to 1,500 rounds per minute. Muzzle velocity was 755 meters per second. Effective range with the bipod was 1,000 meters. Effective range with the tripod was 3,500 meters. Weight was 11.57 kilograms. Caliber was 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser. For comparison, the British Bren fired 500 rounds per minute. The American M1919 Browning fired 600 rounds per minute. The Soviet DP-27 fired 550 rounds per minute. The MG-42 fired twice as fast as anything the Allies could field. At 20 rounds per second, individual shots become indistinguishable. The human ear cannot process discrete reports at that speed. Instead, it perceives a continuous tone, a buzz, a rip, a saw. American soldiers described it in their letters home, like ripping cloth, like a buzzsaw, like a zipper. The sound travelled faster than the bullets. Soldiers heard the shriek before rounds impacted around them. Disorienting, terrifying, unforgettable. The high rate of fire created technical challenges. Barrels overheated rapidly. German Doctrine mandated barrel changes every 250 rounds. That was roughly 12 seconds of sustained fire. Crews trained extensively on rapid barrel swaps. A skilled team could change a red-hot barrel in under 10 seconds. The Eastern Front proved its worth. The MG-42 entered frontline service in 1942. It proved its worth immediately. On the Eastern Front, German defensive positions used interlocking MG-42 fire to devastating effect. Soviet infantry attacks often involved massed formations, waves of soldiers advancing across open ground. The MG-42 was designed for exactly this scenario. 20 rounds per second into a formation of running men. The casualties were catastrophic. The weapon earned its Soviet nickname, the Linoleum Ripper. Soldiers described the sound of bullets tearing through ranks of men, like a blade cutting through flooring. Fast, continuous, unstoppable. The killing ground at Omaha Beach. The most infamous deployment came on D-Day, June 6, 1944. Atlantic wall defences incorporated MG-42 positions overlooking every potential landing beach. At Omaha, the terrain created a natural killing ground. Steep bluffs rose above the beach. Concrete bunkers with clear fields of fire. Interlocking positions covered every meter of sand. The American plan had assumed naval bombardment would neutralize German defenses. Weather and timing failures meant most positions remained intact. When the first wave hit at 6:30 a.m., they advanced into fully operational fields of fire. The results were immediate and catastrophic. The Bedford Boys, Company A of the 116th Infantry Regiment, drawn largely from the small town of Bedford, Virginia, landed in one of the worst sectors, directly beneath an MG-42 position. The company suffered approximately 90% casualties in the first minutes. Of the roughly 200 men from Bedford who served, 19 were killed on D-Day alone. The small town suffered the highest per capita losses of any American community in the war. Stanley Shislowski served with the Canadian Perth Regiment in Italy. He later wrote about facing the MG-42 for the first time. By whatever name we called it, the Jerry machine gun was a weapon to be feared and respected. The Army made a film to fight the fear. The psychological impact became serious enough for official intervention. In 1943, the United States War Department produced a training film. The film was called Automatic Weapons: American versus German. Its stated purpose was educational. Its actual purpose was psychological. Its aim was to combat the fear that the MG-42 had instilled in American troops. The narrator acknowledged the high rate of fire of the MG-42 immediately. He could not pretend soldiers had not heard it. Then he worked to minimize it. He said, "Well, so it does have a high rate of fire." Then he asked, "Does that mean it is a better fighting weapon than ours?" The film argued that American weapons were more accurate, more reliable, and more controllable. It concluded with the memorable line that its bark is worse than its bite. This was propaganda. The film was never shown to combat veterans. It was shown only to green replacements who had not yet faced the weapon. Orville Martin served as a lieutenant with the 13th Armoured Division. He described encountering the MG-42 in Europe. It sounded like a zipper. It eats up a lot of ammunition, but it eats up a lot of people too. German squads were built around the gun. The MG-42 did not just change weapons design. It changed how Germany organised its infantry. American and British tactical doctrine placed the individual rifleman at the centre. The squad existed to deploy rifles, and machine guns provided supporting fire. The Wehrmacht reversed this entirely. German doctrine made the machine gun the core of every infantry squad. The squad existed to serve the gun, not the other way around. A standard German infantry group consisted of 10 men, one squad leader. A 3-man MG-42 team included a gunner, an assistant gunner, and an ammunition carrier. 6 riflemen. The rifleman's primary tactical function was not to engage the enemy with aimed fire. It was to protect and supply the machine gun, to carry ammunition, and to provide security while the gun displaced. The MG-42 did the killing. Everyone else made sure it could keep killing. The gun outlived the Reich. Germany produced approximately 400,000 MG-42 machine guns during the war. When the Reich surrendered in May 1945, the weapon's story might have ended, another relic of a defeated regime. Instead, it achieved something remarkable. It outlived the country that created it. The post-war West German Bundeswehr needed a standard infantry machine gun. They considered various options. In the end, they chose the obvious solution. They kept the MG-42. Engineers rechambered it for the new NATO standard cartridge and designated it the MG-3. The weapon retained every essential characteristic of its predecessor, including the terrifying rate of fire. The MG-3 remains in service with the German military today, 80 years after the original entered production. Variants serve in over 30 countries worldwide. The Americans tried to copy it. Project T-24. It failed. American manufacturers could not replicate the German stamping techniques, but the influence remained. The American M60 and the Belgian FNMAG both show clear lineage from the MG42. June 6, 1944, Omaha Beach, late afternoon. The ammunition finally runs out. Cervello's last barrel is warped beyond use. For 9 hours, he has fired continuously at American soldiers crossing the beach below. He does not know how many he killed. He never wanted to know. After the war, he traveled to America. He met with survivors of the landings. He attended reunions of the units he had fired upon. He sought forgiveness from men he had tried to kill. Some gave it, some could not. He died in 2006. The Americans eventually took Omaha Beach. They took Normandy. They took France. They took Berlin. But they never forgot the sound. 80 years later, that ripping shriek still echoes through military history. The gun that fired so fast it sounded like tearing cloth. The weapon so psychologically devastating the US Army made a film telling its own soldiers not to be afraid. Hitler's Buzzsaw, the Bone Saw, the Linoleum Ripper, the MG42. That was German engineering.